Hello. Hello and welcome to this video about underrated sessions of WWDC 2022. Every year there's a ton of new sessions announced. There are the most popular ones like the What's New in Swift, What's New in SwiftUI, What's New in Xcode and every other language there is sessions, which are always a bit boring. Well, not really boring, but gotta hype up the video a little bit here. But then every year there are a few hidden gems. For example, in the past year it was a session about Demystify SwiftUI. It talked about the rendering pipeline and how SwiftUI views are drawn on the screen. And was a really great insight to understand more of the system. There was also a talk called Adding Delight to Your iOS app, which was more design focused, but gave some nice introductions to the UX principles you can add to your apps to make them beautiful and nice to use for your users. So you're probably now wondering which are the sessions this year that are in a similar realm here. Well, luckily I got you covered, and I'm here to recommend you 4 sessions from this year's WWDC that you should watch because they're really interesting. Let's get started. The first session is called Debug Swift Debugging with LLDB. It's a more low-level session, which is by one of Apple's compiler engineers, but it gives some very interesting insights into how LLDB works. I learned a few new things here, for example, the dual nature of LLDB of working as a debugger as well as a compiler, but being separate processes. It also answers interesting questions like how to register Swift modules with the linker in custom build systems. I mean, those are everyday questions, right? And you learn a few new LLDB commands, such as the Swift health check feature, which is new in Xcode 14. Personally, I'm not that involved with linking and customizing builds like this. But it was a very interesting thing to see how we can go to deeper levels of debugging and finding issues that might occur. So this talk gets a thumbs up for me. Next up is a talk called Bring Your World into Augmented Reality. I'm a huge AR fan, and I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get the big splashy announcements this year. Still waiting for Apple Glass. Or any new operating systems. Still waiting for Reality OS. But there were still some very welcome new features to ARKit. After the introduction to this video, I of course couldn't recommend the What's New in ARKit 6 video. Watch it. But there's another one called Bring Your World into Augmented Reality. And the really cool thing here is that in this video we see an end-to-end pipeline of how to build an AR app. It starts off by showing some best practices around the Object Capture API. If you don't know about this API yet, it brings real-world objects into the augmented reality world by converting them to 3D models. And then they're taking these 3D models and incorporating them into an app, all while building every interaction and the custom shaders that are needed for this. Fair warning, I have no clue about writing custom shaders. I still enjoyed the talk though. Overall, I think it shows a nice differentiation between the more theoretical focused talks and the more practical approaches, which this session is definitely taking, which is why I highly recommend watching it. The third session I want to recommend you is called The Craft of SwiftUI API Design. Specifically, it's talking about a concept called progressive disclosure. What's cool here is that progressive disclosure is one of the principles the SwiftUI framework is based on. It talks about that everybody is creating APIs. Even if you are just building reusable components, it's still creating an API. The talk takes a different perspective here. It goes away from the declaration side of the API to the caller side. The goal there is to have the complexity of the call side grow with the complexity of the use case. This sounds fancy, but when you watch the talk, it will make a ton of sense. Having this change of perspective, as well as the insight of the core principles that SwiftUI relies on, was a very interesting thing, which is why I highly recommend you watching this talk. The fourth session I really enjoyed is called Writing for Interfaces. This is more of a design-focused session, but Apple describes the way they are approaching text and writing text inside of their apps. It will explain what pace stands for and how it helps you keep a natural flow inside of your apps. I really enjoy these meta topics that help us take a step back from writing code and thinking more about how we can make our apps better for everybody so that our users will benefit from that. So I think this talk is not only interesting for designers, but for everybody who's writing apps. Great session. That's it. These are 4 interesting sessions that I think are underrated and that people should watch from this year's edition of WWDC. Before ending this video, I wanted to mention 2 things again. The first here is that you should not feel the need to rush through all the sessions there are. Apple gives us a ton of content in only 1 week, and this is not meant for you to consume in such a short time. The next time that sessions are released will be in 1 year. So you have a lot of time. You don't have to play with every new framework and watch every session there is. Take your time. You have it. The second thing I wanted to mention is, how can you find these hidden gems? And actually, there's only one advice I can give you, and this is stay curious. What I mean by that is that you shouldn't only watch these sessions that directly affect your daily workflow. Scroll through all the sessions there are. Maybe there are some interesting titles that catch your attention. Watch the session and you'll be surprised how much you can learn from them. Even if it's just very little things. There's always something interesting to draw out of each session. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please like the video and subscribe to the channel to see more content in the future. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.